Hey guys, it's Luca from Learning MTG, and today I'm going to talk about one of the worst decks I've ever played. Actually, this was the first deck I ever played in a tournament. I think this was the first time ever entered a tournament. This would have been right when Apocalypse came out, so I think I was like 11. Um, so I was pretty young. I didn't really understand very well like how to make a good deck or how to play well. Um, but I just loved playing. I was playing with my friend Morgan a lot, and basically my strategy for building a deck was I would read Inquest magazine, and in the Inquest magazine they'd have in the back of it I think they'd have a list of like every card in the game, or maybe just every standard card or extended card. I think it was like every card, and they'd put like a certain number of dots next to it. And if it was like 4 or 5 dots, it was like amazing. It was like Black Lotus or whatever. And if it was like 1 dot, it was just unplayable. So I basically tried to find all the cards that I could afford that were like a lot of dots. And I think maybe like Llanowar Elves was 3 dots, and probably like Shock and Duress. So like that's why I put it in my deck. And then you'll notice there's a lot of 1-ups in this deck. There's like a Blurred Mongoose, 1 Birds of Paradise, 1 Do or Die, 1 Deed, 1 Dire Gods, 1 Avatar Woe, 1 Spirit Monger, 1 Vertaloth the Ancient. Because that's just like what I opened in packs. At that point, I was just like, I was a kid, I didn't have any money. So it was just like whenever, I had the chance to, my parents would buy me packs. It would just basically be, whatever I opened packs or whatever I was able to trade with my friends for. Um, and then occasionally I would buy singles for the deck. I remember at Millennium it was either like Bo or Frank that would they'd like look at my deck. I'd like hand them my deck and I'd be like, help me make it better. They'd be like, okay, you need to add this to your deck, and they probably told me cards, like Terminate and Llanowar Elves and that kind of, like staples that are inexpensive. They probably told me to put these lands. So yeah, this was pretty much my deck. It was the first time I ever played in a tournament. It was Type Two back then. Um, you had like it's actually interesting because when you go back in time, like nowadays, if you play in a Magic tournament, pretty much like 80 or 90% of decks are like they're like stock decks. They're like well built decks that you could find online. Um, but back then, actually, a lot of people played a lot of jank. So I'd say half the tournament is playing like a janky deck like I am. And then the other half, or maybe even less than half, are playing like real decks. So the way it used to be is there was 5 rounds, and then it cut to top eight. And somehow, by like a miracle, I ended up going 3-2. I think I played against like 3 other jank decks and like 2 real decks, and somehow I beat the 3 jank decks. And I remember people were like and I like scraped into top eight somehow. I probably started like 0-2 and then won my last 3, so I probably had like the word like bad breakers or whatever, but. Or maybe I had good breakers, but either way, I like squeaked in. I'm sure I was eighth place. I made it in a top eight, and I just remember all of the people were like, "Wait, this kid's in the top eight? Like, what? This little kid?" Um, and that was just really funny. And I remember in the top eight, I was playing against the first seed, and he had like a fully like a real deck. He had Fire's deck, and I remember he played against me, and he went turn 1 Birds of Paradise, turn 2 Fires of Yavimaya, turn 3 Blastoderm, turn 4 Shivan Worm. And he killed me like so fast, and I couldn't do anything, and I was just like, oh my god. Um, so that was the first tournament I ever played in, and somehow I lucked my way into the top eight. Little kid luck. Um, and yeah, I think it's obviously a pretty terrible deck, but some of the stuff in here is not so bad. So you might be like, wait, why is there like trained Armadon? So back then, the way that I used to analyze a card or like think about how good a card was, I'd be like, okay, power and toughness needs to equal the casting cost. So I was like, 3 mana 3/3, that's awesome. And then I was like, 2 mana 2/2, and it has another ability. This card is insane. And so that was like my thought process actually. of how I would choose what cards to put in my deck, and that's why I had 4 Nomadic Elf. I remember I thought this card was broken, and now looking back, it's like this card is terrible. Even a card like Llanowar Dead's way better. Yeah, this was my deck. What else? Like Bird Mongoose is also pretty terrible, but I just thought it was good because it was a rare. But yeah, I should have had way more Flame Tongues in the deck. I should have, I mean, obviously you should have had like way more Spirit Mongers and stuff. I remember like Darigaz was like, I was like, oh my god, this card is sweet. I don't think I ever actually used its ability. I think it was basically just a 6-mana 6/6 flying. And Avatar Woe was the best. Because I just remember this is how I won most of my games. Even though there's only one in my deck. I just remember like somehow I'd get this in play and then they wouldn't be able to kill it and I'd just be like picking off a creature every turn. Yeah. Spirit Monger is obviously sweet. Actually, I think back then, like, creatures being black was good, because I think most of the good removal was, like, Destroy Target non-black creature. Yeah, and again, Vertaloth the Ancient, I just opened it in a pack, and I was like, wow, it's a rare, and it's in my colors, so I'm putting it in my deck. That's kind of my thought process when I was a kid. And Terminate's awesome. So, I mean, I've got some good stuff going on, actually. Looking back at, one of my first times deck building, I think the Terminates are good. The Elves are maybe good. If you can play a Trained Armadon on turn 2, and if that matters, but I don't think it really matters. I probably should have had, like, Blastoderms and stuff. Blastoderm seems like a way better creature. And maybe I did. I don't know if this deck's, like, 100% accurate, but I think it's pretty close. I definitely remember having this in my deck. I don't know if I have enough black sources to cast this, but I remember just having one in my deck. So yeah, this was like my first time playing a standard tournament at Millennium. So brings back some good memories, and I think it's kind of fun to like look back when you didn't really know what you were doing. And you just kind of played a bunch of goofy cards and you just kind of threw it together without much thought. So yeah, that was one of the worst decks I've ever played. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.